Welcome to the show, everybody. Today I have a special guest. Normally I have segments, but every so often I get to interview really cool people, really interesting people, and today is no exception. Today with me is Tara Reade. Welcome to the show, Tara. How are you?
Oh, thank you. What a nice intro. Yeah, it's nice to be here. I
Of
appreciate
course.
it.
So I'm sure everyone maybe not has heard of your story because the media certainly tried to sweep it under the rug quite heavily. When
Right.
I first heard your name perusing the airwaves, it was to discredit you and to bash you because you had an interaction with now sitting president Joseph Biden,
Mhm.
and I. It was an interesting time because it was 2020, right? And
Mm.
my journey of awakening really was watching the news media spin things to whatever they wanted. And your story was exactly one of those that I was like, why is this? Why are they
Yeah.
attacking other some people, but then completely ignoring um, someone like you with a very credible story, actually.
Mhm.
And it was quite shocking to see them completely condemn Trump for locker talk about grabbing someone when they were rooting and rallying behind someone who literally did it.
Yeah.
Well, sorry to be so blunt,
No,
because
but I mean that's truth. It happened. Yeah.
yeah, it's really shocking. But I am glad to see that you are still fighting. You are not defeated, and I really like that and respect that with you. Now I watched your interview with Eliza. Very good job, by the way.
Well, thank
um,
you.
and that's the one thing that I noticed about you is that you were not defeated, and I really like that, and I appreciate that in people. What's your secret? How do you keep fighting through all that?
Well, first let me go back. I was really young
Sure.
staff when
Yeah,
I
please.
started out, and I was actually in the entertainment industry. So I was an actor and a model, and then got involved with politics. I did really well in a course that I was taking political science, and then did an internship with Leon Panetta. Then I was a field manager. I managed a congressional race in a county. And then did some other things, and then ran an election for a judge, and later on, but I was always very interested in history and geopolitics. And I have like three nerd areas: Shakespeare and classical theater and, history and geopolitics. I'm just very fascinated by the human condition, how
Yeah.
it's expressed artistically, and how we express ourselves on that geopolitical landscape. And I got a job with Joe Biden after working on the congressional race. I was hired at the interview. He
Okay.
he walked past and hired me. And then I was sexually harassed, which I go into in the book what happened. And then he sexually assaulted me, and I filed a report about the sexual harassment. And immediately, my duties were pulled away because I supervised interns, and I did. And back then, you have to remember this is pre 9/11, pre all the employment law stuff. So you were kind of all hands on deck. So like I know some of the trolls say she was a mail clerk. No, I wasn't. We worked adjacent. We would all do whatever was called on us to do. And I would write, and they also had in mind that people wanted to do other things
Yeah.
if they were in staff assistant position. I was sent to hearings to take notes. I would edit a speech that maybe was for a press secretary. I would see how that office went. I had to know some of this stuff because I supervised interns who were being placed in all these areas. So of course I was kind of, and it was much looser back then. You didn't necessarily follow a structured, you had your job description, but it wasn't like it would be probably now where it's
Yeah.
really, they're careful. Yeah. So it was a little more haphazard in that sense. So I had all my duties taken away. I was applying for other work. Obviously, I was forced to resign after the assault. It was shattering. It really broke my spirit in a lot of ways at that time. What he said to me has stayed with me for years. He said, that I was nothing.
Yeah.
I was nothing to him, and I was nothing. He got mad. And being a female in our culture, in the American culture, we're culturized to please. We want to do, part of doing well is is being a yes person to these powerful people, right?
Okay.
And I said no. And, the consequences were I lost my career. So I suffered a lot greatly. And then at the same time, I got involved with somebody on the Hill who worked for another senator who ended up being quite abusive, so abusive that his parental rights were terminated. And I raised my daughter alone. And I look back and I mentioned this to Eliza. We didn't go into great depth.
Okay.
I don't think I ever would have been with him had I not had this harassment and assault, and then, everything pulled out from under. It's like at that time in particular, it's kind of like I wanted a savior. I wanted someone to come in and swoop me away and help me. And so I was in this kind of relationship with someone who's very, very controlling, very dominating person. And I was shattered and I just sort of leaned back into it. And then that was a huge mistake, and it altered my life in a very negative way. But I tried to move forward by being an advocate for other people. So I got into the work, I went on with my career in a different way.
Yeah.
And
You stayed in politics, or you moved away from politics?
no, I was in politics when my daughter I worked for a state senator, but I moved after the domestic violence, I actually went to law school. I put myself through law school.
Okay.
And I worked as an advocate and an expert witness with domestic violence victims and sexual assault victims. And I was certified by Homeland Security as a train the trainer. So I would train prosecutors and judges and other people on domestic violence prevention. And
Okay.
I worked with Seattle Police for a brief time. They were going to have a victim support team. So I learned a lot in that training from that program. And, moving forward, Joe Biden became vice president, as you know. And
Right.
during that period of time, my daughter was like in junior high. And we were still kind of like not wanting my ex-husband to know where we were. And there was no mechanism or no platform to come forward.
Yeah.
So I, stayed quiet, but I told some friends who told the press, the people that were called. And then, that's when I came out, is what I mean later. People interviewed them and said, yes, they verified. I had told them at the time this horrible thing had happened. And I just kept quiet. I didn't go to the press at that time when he was vice president. Then when I saw Lucy Flores, there was a turning point for me. And it was The View. It was Whoopi Goldberg being so horrendous as she is about sexual assault. And they were tearing apart Lucy Flores, who was a young politician and spoke up courageously. And I talked to my mom my daughter. I talked to my daughter about it. And I said, look, I'm going to come forward. And she said, Mom, he's too powerful. And then I knew, I can't let that generational abuse keep going. It had to stop. So I came forward thinking I had the Me Too movement, Time's Up, and all of this support around me. And I just stepped off a cliff.
Yeah.
And then he was just trolled. And the corporate media was just brutal to me. And
was this in 2020 when you first came out and said?
2019, actually.
2019, you came out and said it.
And the first thing they accused me of, very first out the gate, before even denying what happened to me, was they said I was a Russian asset. I was a Russian agent because I was writing a novel about Russia at the time, which I still haven't finished. And now I'm on my third draft. And
I want to talk about that too. But we'll get
so
to that later.
That was the way to immediately dismiss me. And
then connection to Russia. Oh, boom. Because that's their go-to, right?
And so then, because Russiagate was really like Rachel Maddow's on your TV every night going, oh, and then, and then Hillary Clinton doing her thing. So it was really hard to have my voice heard. And luckily for me, Ryan Grimm, who is this amazing reporter with The Intercept, and Katie Halper looked into my story. And I don't know, all the they did their own investigative work. And Katie Halper is, as she says, not a reporter, but she, still looked into it. And there's ways that they verified my story. And I had to provide paperwork. Of course, I had to verify all this. I did to the New York Times. All of these people knew. I heard from a TV anchor, a very famous one, very famous, who said to me, look, Tara, we all know this probably happened. It's a known secret. that Joe is handsy. And then he told a story about his own wife getting groped at a diplomatic event. And I
By
was
Joe
just like,
Biden.
yes, by Joe Biden. And he said his wife didn't want to come forward. And so I can't name who the anchor is, but it is verified. It is true. And I wish they would come forward. I wish people like that would, because there's so many stories like that about him being inappropriate and like literally just putting his hands all over people.
I mean, there's videos upon videos of him being handsy with children, and
Yes.
it's like, how is it not believable that he would be handsy with adults also? I mean, I guess people just are okay with him groping kids, and it's like, well, it's just kids. It's like, wait a minute,
Oh,
what?
they were brutal to me. I think the most brutal was probably Washington Post. Well, I mean, they all were bad,
Of
but
course,
like,
Washington Post. What a surprise.
mhm,
They
that
called
reporter.
me an extremist. I don't know if you read that article.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, it's just they use incendiary words. And like I was listening to, actually, this kind of brings me to current times. I was listening to one of the representatives in the Biden administration. I almost said Clinton because it feels like we're just like continuing on,
Like
but
old.
with our anti-Russia and all that.
Right.
But he was saying unprovoked, they use words over and over and over to get into the American consciousness.
Yeah.
Negative words that employ fear and then employ
Mhm.
like ominous things. And they did that with me. So I experienced a vilification. I had New York Times reporters convinced I had an online Russian boyfriend, had my attorney on the phone with the reporter saying, I do not. Where are you
Okay.
getting this?
Yeah.
And she would only say, oh, it's anonymous sources. We can't give our source. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. So I'm still, as we speak, waiting for my online boyfriend. I don't know. He must have dropped me. What do you think?
What a bummer. Are
Yeah.
you gonna be okay?
I don't know. I mean, so
So
anyway, that was, that's like a little like, I mean, I experienced, I lost my house, I lost my job, I lost my work, I got threatened with prison.
for
I
what
got
though?
threatened with my
What
life.
was
It was
like? What would
great.
they have thrown you in prison for? Just to get you to shut up, basically?
No,
I don't.
it was about my education piece because, I went through the domestic violence and went through, like, I had to have a sealed name change. I had to, so for a while it was Alexandra
Okay.
McKay. I'm back to my legal name, but
Okay.
I had to, I was relocated. I was in a program. I was in an actual law enforcement women's
Wow.
shelter program. It was very structured. And
That's intense.
they dug that out. And instead of talking about me surviving domestic violence, they class shamed me, talked about how poor I was, kind of made me sound trashy,
This is Washington Post.
you know.
This is
Hmm?
The Washington Post article you're talking about?
AP, Washington Post, CNN, they were all
Okay.
coming at me at the
They're
same
all the
time.
same. All the
They're,
same thing.
and Politico.
Of
Politico
course.
interviewed my landlords, one of which, two of which just outright lied. One of them had the property condemned, and that's why I had to move. And they literally lied to the press. That was Harriet Rye. And I could sue her. There's all these people I could sue. Another one was an
Yeah.
attorney that I actually asked for help. She violated my confidentiality and lied. There was no money owed. I had no problems at her place when I rented a place. So the actual couple of people that they did get to talk just outright lied.
Yeah.
One of them actually got money and donations for their nonprofit from the public.
Wow.
So they actually profited off lying about me. And I saw the most, and then I found out there were people that were actually paid, and that came out in court. There was a court, a restraining order and stuff. That's another story, but that my daughter filed against someone who was harassing and stalking, and it was granted. And in that came out the evidence that there were people actually paid money to smear me, and
To lie about you.
yeah, and what's really amazing is the New York Times and CNN, they lifted those people up, but they wouldn't lift up people close to me that really knew me.
Yeah.
And they never interviewed the 3 people at Biden's office that knew about the sexual harassment and that knew I was threatened and all that stuff. They didn't do those interviews. And it was PBS. I asked to tell my story. Remember how they interviewed 74 people or blah, blah, blah?
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't allow me to be interviewed. They said,
Why?
"Oh, we've litigated it."
What did they say?
They said, "We've litigated it." Just exactly what Jen Psaki said publicly at the White House press briefing. That's been litigated. Nothing's been litigated. They use the word litigated to make it sound official.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of press articles placed for $2.2 million that Joe Biden paid to his PR campaign. So no, nobody litigated. There was no investigation. There was no, justice. There was no, anything. So yeah, it was really, it's been really hard. So I'm going through all this, right? Can't get work, trying to place op-eds. I reach out to RT. I'd been interviewed by one of the people on the show, and they were lovely. They didn't use me as clickbait. They were very careful. They were very dignified in how they handled it. And so I reached out and said, "Hey, I want to write. I want to do this," and didn't hear back, and then kept knocking on their door, so to speak.
Yeah.
I have the opportunity, and they've been lovely. I've worked with them. I'm freelance, so I just submit like op-eds. They'll take them or they won't.
Yeah.
And then I'm now doing the podcast, which they produced, and it's been such a different experience because I've been working these international reporters, investigative reporters that are completely different. They're very, very ethical, and they fact check everything two or three times. And because it's key,
what's that like?
It's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and the thing is, they are really extra careful because they get so much criticism. So there are stories they may not even cover because they feel like they just don't have it airtight. Whereas, like, New York Times, they will just
whatever. Doesn't matter. Run with it. So it's a classic journalist, how it used to be.
Snake Island thing. Washington Post printed that. All those people got killed. Nobody fact checked it. No, it was a false story. It was propaganda out of Ukraine because Ukraine is corrupt, and it has been.
Yep, there's a lot of that coming out of this whole thing too. But before we get into that, though, you've always been a writer, right? So you've
always, yeah. Writing is my first love. Besides acting, I love it.
Go ahead, yeah, please.
No, that's it. I just love it.
And you're writing a book currently. You mentioned it earlier, and I actually wanted to ask you about it because it's an interesting premise. Now, on the Elijah Blue podcast, you mentioned it's basically as if the roles were reversed, right, between America and Russia. This whole like Russia's the boogeyman, and I'll be honest, I don't know anything about Russia. I've never been there. I don't think I know any like actual Russians that were from Russia. All that I know is from movies and that's it. Movies and shows that have portrayed them as like the big bad boogeyman that we're always like fighting against, and that we owe Sputnik our everything. That I love space. I don't know if you know that about me, but Sputnik was the start of it all, right? And it's because they sent out a satellite that freaked us out, and then suddenly all of NASA was born, and now we're exploring space, or soon to get out there, and it's just cool. But so tell us about your book that you're writing, if you want to. I know that you've kind of alluded to it, and I kind of said a little bit of it, but I want to hear more.
It's called The Last Snowtiger. And it's kind of interesting because I'm finally getting it going and in the year of the water tiger. So it seems like it makes sense. But it's about a friendship between two young girls. And some of it is, autobiographical for me. I started out when I first wrote this, and some of it then breaks into fiction. But, and you'll know the obvious parts where it does. But it's about their friendship. A tragedy happens. There's about their connection, food, music, culture, a lot of it that I'll explore that kind of brings up the Russian culture more. And I try to look at it through two lenses. So the two characters get equal time. I look at it through her lens, which is a Russian national. She comes here, her lens. And then the other main character, the American lens or the Western lens. And really, I flip the narrative in the sense that, Americans aren't necessarily the good guys in this, and as the story trajectory unfolds.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to get away from the whole spy killer genre, like that bullshit. I
Yeah.
wanted to really explore real connections and ties, because I tell you, I've had a couple nights where I've cried. Like what's going on right now. It's breaking my heart. Like I
Mm.
have cousins that are Russian and, from St. Petersburg, and I just, and I have, other background in my family, but obviously predominantly, but, and I'm an American citizen, American, but this is heart wrenching. And what's been heart wrenching the whole time is the xenophobia and the Russophobia, and watching some of my friends. Like I have a friend who's an artist who's not interested in politics at all,
Yeah.
and who called me quite emotional, was asking me to explain what was happening, because she didn't understand. She had just come from Russia, and she was like, I don't understand what's happening. Am I going to be able to go back? Because she has dual citizenship.
Okay.
And she's an artist and just knows nothing about, and not interested in. And so I walked her through what I knew, and, about Ukraine, and about, what's going on. And she was devastated. I mean,
Yeah.
it's devastating.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's delve into that, because I feel like, I'm in the news every day. I'm constantly
Mhm.
reading everything and trying to piece things together for myself. I still don't really understand what's happening. All that I see everywhere being blasted is that Putin is shaking his, powerful Russian army at Ukraine and invading and taking it over. And then I'm looking at all the individual news stories, like you mentioned, that island, where they were like,
Ground.
go F yourself, Russian troops. And then it was like turned out to be a lie. And then it was like 83 of them that were captured or whatnot. And then the ghost of Kiev, and like all these different
All that,
stories.
yeah. Which
And
is,
I'm like,
stuff from a video game. I mean, it's just, yeah.
yeah, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to believe, right? Because I've just spent the past 2 years watching the media lie about everything. And now they're suddenly everyone's rallying to what the media is telling them. I'm like, well, this is not surprising. That's what people do. They rally behind whatever the media tells them to rally behind. But me being the skeptic now that I am with the media, I'm like, I don't know what to believe. What did you tell your friend? What did you explain to her?
Well, once we got into it, like she kind of knew intuitively, because she knows some Ukrainian. It's like what was going on with that historical
Yeah.
piece. It was just sort of like, wait, well, what's going on? And then I kind of went into that.
Okay.
But really, to go back, when you think about Vladimir Putin is just so vilified, and I get in so much trouble for saying anything positive or remotely, I get accused like. Last week, it was a senior CNN reporter wanted me investigated for treason, along
What?
with a Politico reporter. And then just yesterday, a podcast host whom I was on a show, and
Mhm.
he's a Russia expert who's all in for Ukraine, even though he's American, he doesn't know shit. And he basically said I should have Russian state affiliated on my personal, you know, Twitter account, and
Wow.
reported me to Twitter safety, reported me for Russian, whatever. And it's so stupid and neo McCarthyism and bigoted and ugly. But what this
Mhm.
all came down to is Russia and Ukraine have their own history that goes back centuries. And if you go and watch Vladimir Putin's recent speech, he lays out that history. Now, other
Yeah.
people will dispute it. So get balance, read another version of that history,
Okay.
Ukraine and Russia. But without getting too deep down into that, tunnel, let's take it forward from 2007, when Vladimir Putin pushed back on the West and said, we will not be in a unipolar world. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, Vladimir Putin wasn't everybody's darling in the West, because before that, he was invited to all the A-list celebrity parties. They
Yeah.
liked him. They raised him up. He sang. They did things, whatever. Then all of a sudden, he's a monster. He's a villain. He's the enemy. And
Yep.
then he built up this whole thing that's really been methodical for years, and weaponizing the media with it. Russia's never wanted to be our enemies. They wanted to collaboratively work with us and be partners. But, and I know this from working in DC, we never wanted Russia to become an economic power again after the fall of the Soviet Union. And
Hmm.
what Putin did was he raised it up with his leadership, with other people around him, they raised it up. They kicked out the bad oligarchs that were robbing, and the Americans that were robbing the coffers of Russia at that time. And they created a middle class. They got into capitalism. And so there was no ideological enemy for America to have. They're no longer communists, right? They're not even socialists. They're capitalists, and they're competing. And they have rich resources. And then you have Ukraine. And Ukraine, they call it the breadbasket of Europe. It has wheat. It has a lot of minerals. It has the Nord Stream 2 runs partially through that. And so you see this rise that Russia's had in the markets along with China. And the US is like, no, we want this unipolar world where we're the economic dominating force, we're the cultural police. We are it. Meanwhile, as we go through and we bomb, 7.
I was about to say, and also we're the only ones who get to invade countries and bomb them and be
7
the power.
countries in 8 years, yeah. And so Putin pushed back, and then from that point forward, from that speech that he gave on, it was like, oh, it's on. Like the West was just after him. So they just vilified him because I think it wouldn't have mattered. Like, put a paper doll in that place. It doesn't matter who was president of Russia. They were going to have to be vilified, and they were going to have to, just like Gaddafi was for Libya. They had to make a horrible monster cartoon comic monster evil villain.
As long as that person wasn't going along with what they wanted, right? Which is basically Putin right now.
Yeah. So now they lift up Zelensky, who's, come on, like.
Well, that dude was an actor.
He was a comedian. Yeah.
I learned yesterday. Someone mentioned that the party from some movie that he played. He actually like used that name. He's part of the World Economic Forum.
Right.
Who I don't trust at all. Anyone who's on their list, which even Putin was. But a buddy of mine told me yesterday that the World Economic Forum has basically cut ties with Putin now, because I think Putin was like, I don't want a part of this. I'm going to make Russia great again, I guess, is it
wasn't about like I think what Vladimir Putin has been saying all along, if you listen and you listen to the Russian delegation, which I do, and I've read what they're saying, the translations, they're a regional power. They just want to make their country flourish. Yeah. They're not interested in world domination. The United States, on the other hand, is interested in global economic unipolar power. And the reality is we're moving to a multipolar power state. We are in a chasm right now. It's like world is shifting. China and Russia and India, they're all becoming viable, growing economies.
True.
And they're going to have a voice. And so the U.S. is trying its best it can to shove that voice down with NATO.
It's interesting
fast forward to 2014, because this is really important. 2014 in Medan, the Medan massacre you heard was what Julian Assange exposed the war crimes that the U.S. participated in the emails, the phone calls with Victoria Nuland. The way she was, remember how she showed up during the color revolution with her little snacks and sandwiches? They were funding it with millions of dollars, but they funded neo-Nazis, which are now 8%. They were 4%, then up to 8% of the government of Ukraine. And that's not a huge amount, but it's enough to be problematic because they're armed. They're an armed militia. And so you flash forward to Zelensky, who's Jewish. He's trying to figure out how he can't do certain political things because of that faction. And they're wanting conflict. And then, I'm simplifying it really here at this point, but that flashpoint of 2014 and what the West did and how they interfered was very offensive. And it was, of course, in response to Crimea and some other things going on with Russia. So you had this push-pull. But I would contend a lot of it has to do with oil and gas, domination of markets.
Yep.
And we are simply pawns in these geopolitical push, tug of wars. And, and again, I'll get in trouble for saying this, but it's just the truth. For 8 years, Vladimir Putin tried diplomatic roads. He wanted the Minsk II. He's asking for no nuclear or missiles on his border. He's wanting NATO not, and they've actually come in on his borders 5 times since they were not supposed to over the course of a couple of decades.
Yeah, I've heard
5
about this. Please
and
continue.
yeah, and so when Zelensky a few days before this happened, he said he was going to try to work to get nuclear weapons back in Ukraine and on the border of Russia. That's 4 hours from Moscow. Now, if that was the United States and somebody was putting, on the Mexican border and pointing it towards one of our states, can you imagine? Like, come on.
I don't know. It seems like a lot of these Democrats don't care about the border of America anymore. So,
but
I
I'm
mean,
just saying, if someone was putting nuclear weapons on it, yeah, like we'd notice.
yeah.
So he was asking for Ukraine to be a neutral state and not a puppet government of the West. So he didn't want it to join. That was the big push about not joining NATO. So he's wanting neutrality. With a stroke of a pen, if they would put it in writing that Ukraine's not going to be part of NATO, it's too corrupt anyway. It's not a democracy. And that's another myth they try to throw out there. It's not. And, and just allow that neutrality. I mean, all of this could have been diplomatically handled, but I knew something bad was going to happen when they canceled that summit. The US canceled it. And then Zelensky talked about nuclear weapons. And I thought, uh-oh. And look at where we are. I mean, it just, and so now, because again, they're talking about nuclear. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but I just posted a tweet. Some crazy Democrat or Republican, I don't know, I think Democrat, a lawyer posted that we should do a preemptive strike, a nuclear strike.
I saw that tweet.
Her name's Pam. So Pam, we're not getting the codes. So anyway, so that kind of, if that brings you up to speed, here we are in this moment.
I want to pull it up and just show people this craziness. Here it is, Pam Keith. Hold on, let me share this.
She's a lawyer, and I was just like, wow. I was thinking she's in family law because, like, they're kind of scorched the earth types. Criminal law, they're tired. Family law, they're like, everybody dies.
If ever there was a justification for a preemptive strike, it is right now, against a madman hell-bent on destroying the world to appease his ego. If ever there was a time to drop a Moab on a bunker, it's right now, on Putin's hidey hole before the obliteration of Ukraine. This is crazy. And you know what? It doesn't surprise me because it feels like there's a lot of these people. There's someone else, actually, I think.
What the mayor of London tweeted out?
What?
That they are prepared for nuclear war. He tweeted that. That's insane. The mayor of London. I mean, it's one thing if like some random attorney says that, but like when you're looking at government officials, that incendiary language, like that's not helping diplomacy. That's not helping anybody.
So Adam Townsend, I don't know if you know who he is. He tweeted this earlier today. The amount of total BS coming out of Western propaganda proxies should discredit the entire reason the West has engaged in Ukraine. And it's coming from extremely authoritative sources, top booking experts, CNN. Of course, they aren't held in contempt. They should be. And I just retweeted it, right? Because I agree with that. And this one guy just straight up is this dude. I mean, so
What's
this...
his
name, I don't know. Tanzan. It's a no. I don't know. It's just somebody, a nobody account, right? It doesn't matter. But he basically said, all of you need to be like removed from existence. All of you, anyone who's like on the side of not Ukraine, anyone, if you're not for Ukraine, like, look, I don't want war. I don't want anyone getting killed or fighting.
Ukrainian, Russian, or American. No.
Russian, Ukrainian, American, anyone. I want to be peaceful. I want the world to be at peace. Like, it's pretty easy to say that because, that's what I want. I don't know enough about what's going on. And I do know that the U.S. has we bombed Somalia like not even a week ago. And people are like,
that it was happening. We bombed Somalia.
And no one's even talking about it.
And then the racism that you're seeing, like I know you probably saw that, the racism by the reporters when they're saying, well, these people, like one of them said, these people watch Netflix and they're civilized. And it's like, whoa, how to say you're a racist without saying you're a racist, right?
Oh my goodness.
They watch Netflix and they're civilized and they're not impoverished, I think she said. It was an English reporter. But the other key thing that I left out, which is really important because you're going to hear the State of the Union address by Joe Biden just gaslight everyone.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
14,000 Russian nationals died in those two breakaway regions where Vladimir Putin went in.
14,000, he said.
And in Donbass, over the period of 8 years, 14,000 people were killed by mostly, and not allowed to speak Russian language, no access to proper resources. So they asked.
Wait, but who? By who? You said but I didn't know who were the people that were killing these people.
Well, you're looking at the they call them insurgent or the fractions from Ukrainian government, but they're mostly neo-Nazi battalions. They're interested in wiping out the Russian nationals. They don't want them to speak Russian,
wow.
And they won't. So some people didn't have it, so there's just shelling and bombing going on for years. For 8 years, this has been going on. They turned and they asked for help and protection, and he gave it. And, he talks about denazifying, and, that word is very vague to our language. I don't know in Russian, like it might have a different meaning because their language is much more complex.
Yeah.
It means denazi means get rid of Nazis, right? But how,
right.
Structurally does that mean? So I'm not clear on that. And I don't think anyone is, that is in the West. But in the East, in Russia, I think the whole thing is they fought Nazis. Like they lost what percentage of their population, 25% or something, during World War II fighting Nazis. And now in Ukraine, you have this power grid where there's even though it has a Jewish president, they have a very powerful portion that are anti-Russian and pro-Nazi. And it's frightening to the people. And
I was reading an article yesterday about how the U.S. government actually funded the training for these guys in Ukraine.
CIA, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then there's another part of this whole, the Burisma Joe Biden connection. He flaunted the fact that he pushed Ukraine around to get what he wanted, to get the prosecutor fired, to make his problems go away. It's like
he did it right on television, and then they did nothing. And now they're talking
bragged about it.
He's going to go after Putin as a war criminal. What about Iraq, Yemen, and Afghanistan? We just killed children, civilians. And then what did Joe Biden say in public? He didn't like the report his own military made. He just didn't like it. He didn't want to see it, right? That was his flippant remarks. They killed children. They droned children. Obama, we know how many, because Daniel Hale is in prison because he whistleblew that 90% of their droning was hitting civilians and missing their targets. It's, because they were trying to be like, oh, this is very targeted. We're just getting, the bad, And I when are these people going to be held accountable? They're war criminals. And now they're trying to Cheney and Bush, they're just rehabilitating them. They're,
Bush had the audacity to come out and say, how dare Russia invade another country? It's
oh my God. I didn't see that. After Iraq.
Seriously, dude?
I saw Condoleezza Rice, and it was just really, they are psychopaths. I mean, you just have to be okay.
Really? I haven't even seen Condoleezza Rice in years, and that she's surfacing now. To what? She's some sort of expert in countries being invaded, right? Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense.
The Republicans are trying to jump on the bandwagon of I've seen two different things. I saw Greg Kelly. I had been on his show a couple weeks ago. Now he wants to kill Russians, and it's great. That's cool. That's really, you just, I don't know. The ignorance is just. And the xenophobia, like I said, and the Russophobia. Why do we want to kill anybody? What?
That's a great question.
That's so violent.
Right? Why? I don't want anyone to die. I don't want it.
I mean, I don't even have ill wishes for my trolls. I mean, I wish they'd leave me alone, but I would never wish harm on anyone. I don't care how horrible I think they are. I don't want them to experience harm. Isn't that more of a natural way to be, or a more peaceful way to be?
You just got to feel bad for those trolls that are out there that get their kicks off trolling people. I mean, they exist, but they're
Oh, they
really sad. It's just sadness, really.
Well, I mean, like there's, troll farms, you have to understand it's like one person running 20 or 50 or sometimes even 100 different handles, and they just go on algorithms or keywords. That's from my
Mm.
understanding now that I know. But like some of the people that have been stalking me basically and like putting my location or like putting pictures of my daughter up or threatening us, they're pretty gross, but I know they're paid. I mean, like no one could be that obsessed without having like a master.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I mean, if they're just obsessed on their own, that's really fucking crazy.
Yeah, I believe it.
Like I can't imagine like spending my time stalking someone and watching everything they do. It would be weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So,
creepy.
so how do you get away from it all? How do you turn your brain off from this? Can you? I mean, do you have an escape from the
Um,
craziness of the world?
for a while I didn't. I was really, really shattered by all this. I got, some health problems because of it, and especially when
Mhm.
they were trying to threaten me to put me in prison. That
I
part was
believe it.
hard. Um, my horse, I love my horse. I love being outside. I love doing outdoor activities. I love gardening and I love writing. And I write poetry. And I printed some of it on Substack. And then it was a Russian actually, who said, "Your prose is shit." And I was like, oh, because Russians really know their poetry. So I was like, kind of pulled me. Yeah, it wasn't even a troll. It was like an actual critique. And I was like, okay, I'm going to pull down my poetry for a minute. So I lost confidence. I like
No.
writing, but like with poetry, I'm really sensitive. I'm like a little kid, it's like, but anyway, so I do that. I do, a lot of outdoor stuff, and I swim a great
That's good.
deal, especially now that COVID's over. Yes. So it's so nice.
Yeah, it's finally over.
Yeah. They just decided we're going to have
Yeah.
a war now. We're
Like,
done.
all right, we're gonna, well, climate change didn't hook you all. All right, war it is. Let's whip up everyone into a frenzy now.
As a person sitting back and watching this unfold and seeing people who you'd normally see be like all about peace, having them see with their yellow and blue flags and they're going to go kick Russian ass and all that other shit they're saying online. How do you feel like watching that?
Well, the first thing I think of it's all the same people that were wishing death on me because I'm not vaccinated. I got
Mhm.
COVID and beat it. And I'm sure a lot of people were like, "Oh, bummer," I could have totally used him as an example, because that's
Oh,
I've s- you know, I they don't I don't see it because I tend to avoid reading that kind of stuff if I can. But it is the same people, they just they went from one virtue signal to the next one.
yeah.
They're putting flags in their bio, and then that's it. That's the extent of what they're doing to fight. The bad guy that they're told. They go about their day. They don't actually do anything about it. They don't actually care, or they claim to, but
Zelensky
it's
opened the
empty.
door. He said foreign nationals can come without a visa and fight.
That's
So
true. And how
I'm
many
feeling
how many of them are going
like,
out fighting,
go get your gun, get off Twitter, go over there. They're looking for
Yep.
you.
Where's all these Antifa, these anti-fascists, which
Mhm.
you would assume they'd think that it's Putin, but it turns out there's a big Nazi presence in Ukraine, but everyone seems to be okay with defending it.
Mhm.
Now I'm not saying that
They're battalions. They're
I
actual
but
battalions. Yeah.
I got to make it clear. It really sucks that, there are innocent people being hurt in the crossfire here because, you know,
Children. Yeah.
yeah, innocent people are getting killed, but like, where were all those people when Joe Biden, bombed a family, an innocent family in Afghanistan, or let people getting killed, or totally botched it all? They kind of like put their blinders on and were like, no, 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 we're good. It's bad, but it's not that bad.
Oh,
It's
and
like,
then then there's the racist, part of it where they're considered, well, these aren't Europeans. Like, remember how they use that on the news? These are
wait,
Europeans. It's like, and what that's code for white. They have blonde hair, blue eyes. So
gosh,
yeah, it's ugly. It's ugly. It's so transparent. It's like, oh, well, you're just waving your racist flag right there.
yep,
And
yep.
and I think, when I've after what I went through, I've completely lost my faith in most of humanity anyway. Because I
I
just
understand.
look at it and it's just like it's been such a shit show.
Yeah.
But what I want to make clear to people is like, look at how that machine went after me. If
Yep.
you think for a minute that that machine isn't going to turn towards you, any regular citizen that doesn't toe the line and say what the elites want, you're mistaken, because they will come at you with everything and you'll experience it. So, like this thing with, how they've censored RT. RT's
Yeah.
no
What's up
longer
with that?
on
What's
YouTube.
so? Are you no longer like the in Europe? Did they ban RT?
Mhm.
I just read about that. You can't
And on
go.
Google to
Wow,
YouTube. And
crazy.
yeah, and RT America. And then now they've labeled, like I have colleagues that are on, like RT America, they've
Yeah.
labeled their personal accounts. Now, these aren't their professional, for the personal accounts as Russia state funded media.
Wow.
I know. And, Caleb Malpone has been very outspoken against that. Like, he's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Like, this is my personal account, my own opinions. This isn't reflecting, because also he has a responsibility to say whenever he does, on his thing, he says, these are my own opinions, like not
Yeah. Yeah.
necessarily Russia's, he's here. Another colleague of mine, they're getting death threats. They're getting, horrible emails. They're getting challenged. Like, do you believe in what Putin's doing? And da, 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 da. And people try to come at me with that shit. And I'm just like, I believe in peace. And
Yeah.
I think the Western Empire has been the
I mean,
worst.
even in chat right now, there's some people that are like, "Well, RT is Russian propaganda." Let me just say, I've read a lot of articles from a lot of news sources, and all the RT articles that I have read, it's like how you were explaining earlier about the journalists that they make sure that they check their stories, they read the news. I've actually done comparisons on my show about some people talking about Trump, a specific, I don't remember exactly what the story was, but I showed, I don't remember, I think Politico or maybe Reuters. And then I was like, this is how they say it. And then I read an RT article and it was so much more factual. And it's almost like if you could siphon the bias out, which is, and well, now people are like, well, is it, is it propaganda or is it giving you the raw truth, which is
And if,
very
and if you
rare.
call RT propaganda, then what's PBS? What's NPR? They're state
Right.
funded. They're
Yeah,
government.
right. NPR
So,
is
I mean,
so,
like, where does it end?
oh, it's
Yeah.
embarrassing.
And as
NPR.
far as RT goes, I write prop eds. So those are opinion pieces. They're my opinion. And
Yeah.
I submit them. They have never controlled me. They've never said, hey, would you write about I write my own thing and then they either accept or they don't. It's like the
Yeah.
regular submission process every writer goes through. You have to go to the
Right.
editor. They're like, not into that this week. Or, oh, okay, that's got a hook. Can you develop this more? Put the facts, fact check this, whatever. But that's the process. It's not, it's just the regular process you would do. But this is the thing that's interesting. The writers for RT, many of them write for other have written for other publications, like
Yeah, I see that.
major, Common Dreams or for, I'm The Guardian. I'm sorry, I was blanking on The Guardian. The Guardian, or,
Mhm.
like in, and then you have Chris Hedges, who's very renowned. Larry King was on RT before he died. Dennis Miller's on RT. Lee Camp. I mean, these are people that are very smart and very educated, and they're not interested in propaganda. They're
Yeah.
interested in truth. They're interested in trying to look at something through a different lens or a neutral lens rather than just a Western one.
Yeah.
So
I am finding out. I mean, I've talked about this a lot on my show, actually. The National Defense Authorization Act in 2013, when they passed that as law, they snuck in the Smith-Mundt Act that failed the year before, which allowed American media to lie. Because before, since the Cold War, it was legal for news media in America to tell lies to the rest of the world, to like not give them the truth. But you couldn't
right,
do that to American citizens. You had to give the American citizens the raw truth. Well,
right.
Obama changed that. They helped make this whole shift in, you know what? Let's just make it so you don't have to differentiate that propaganda you're sending elsewhere and just let you just that everything be propaganda. So
Wow,
now,
I didn't really know the intricacies of that. Oh my goodness.
yeah, it's pretty messed up. And then you
Well,
think about
how is it
what
impacted though? Give me an example of how that impacts. because like
Well,
everything
okay.
online,
If
international stuff.
if you do a web search for the
Uh-huh.
word racism or
Right.
um, mm, white privilege, or well, just a
Mhm.
couple things off the top of my head, there's a spike specifically from, you guessed it, 2013, because all of a sudden they started slamming in this um, you know, whatever they want. Systemic racism is another one of those buzzwords. All these buzzwords that you see all the time, and it's like gender studies and like all this stuff where and it makes me think of bulimia, right? It's
Mhm. Yeah.
uh, so
An eating
that
disorder. Mhm.
wasn't a problem until a doctor actually coined the phrase bulimia, and they did a media report on it. As soon as there was a media report, within a year, it skyrocketed like up 60%, bulimia cases everywhere. And it was
Well, that's more diagnostic, right? That's more like they kind of put a label on. It's like when you talk
okay.
about.
It could be, but it also could be that people are like, um, I have that. I want to
Oh, I
explain
see.
something that might be something different, but then you know what I mean? It's kind of like jumping on
I
the bandwagon, um, uh,
Okay.
groupthink. I mean, we are,
Groupthink, yeah. So it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like we're labeled something, and yeah, it's. I know. I came from a time, because I'm a little older than you. Like we didn't, we're like we
yeah.
didn't have as many labels, so we were just kind of winging it.
I'm on the I felt like I was on the very s tail end of that kind of, environment, right? I grew up
Mhm,
in an age where I didn't have a TV when I was a kid. I
mhm.
was bruising my knees, and the first TV that I
Right.
interacted with was like the you had to switch the 2 different dials to go to,
Right.
like, the
It
10s
goes
and then
up and
the
down.
individuals, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I there
Right. And the
wasn't internet.
pagers. Yeah. Yeah, right.
Pagers, like, we weren't connected instantly. It's like, and when you finally were in someone's presence, that's all that you had, was their presence. Now people are like, oh, looking at my phone, let this being distracted. And just to let you know, I'm looking down because I'm looking at your face here when you speak.
Oh,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
trying
I
I'm
understand. I
trying to look
can't.
at the camera because
You
it,
have the light
but
on you, so I can't really see you. I'm looking into the place where you would be.
oh,
So
oh, good, good. But the presence of mind is totally changed now. We're
right.
so shallow. For a lack of better word, it does feel like that, and we're missing out. That
It's
generation is
it's
different.
weird, but I have to say, here's the good part. Okay,
Mm,
the good part for me. I'll use my personal experience. I was going through hell, right?
yeah,
Being trolled and being like attacked by the media. But there were some people on Twitter that reached out to me, survivors, that I won't ever tell who they are, but some famous people that reached out and said, please, you can't reveal I reached out to you, but I'm talking to you. Um, Experiences like that where they gave me support, but it's invisible, but it's behind the scenes. And then
yeah,
I had a group of people, Avalon Claire, Kat, Eric, these group of people that just really cared and even formed a committee and like organized, because I'm, whatever, I'm all over the place, but like they organized my timeline of what happened to me and like all the evidence that I had. And I was overwhelmed by all that. Like, and I
yeah,
certainly didn't know how to put it in an organized way online or, whatever. And just that support, even if nobody even really read it or looked at it, which people did actually, but it made me feel like I had a community. So even though there's this disconnection, it was a very deep, profound thing for me to have that safety net
yeah,
because, you have to understand, I was getting death threats and people were telling me, when are you going to commit suicide? And calling me and leaving me messages and threatening my daughter. And like she got her home broken into, and someone threatened to kidnap my horse. And that was a whole thing. And there was a lot. It was so much.
yeah.
And they kept me sane. Like, they
Hmm.
just like, okay, you're because you start to believe like what they're saying about you. You're a loser, you're nothing, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, like all this, you're slut, they called me a Russian whore who made all my money on my back, all of these names, really horrible things.
Yeah,
And it can really get to you if you let it. And so I had to build kind of a psychological structure around that. But I have to say the online community helped me. So there is a positive of that.
Yeah. Do you
You
think,
know,
well, when you were listing these terrible things that they said, it feels like one of the harshest things was Joe Biden saying that you were nothing. And it really does feel like he thinks that about everyone else. And I feel like these elites, that's just how they think of us. You know, me, you, the regular people out there. Um, what do you think is the best, or what do you think is, I don't know, what can we do, right? What do we do
you go
to,
through something like that if somebody minimizes you like that. Like it doesn't have to be a sexual assault, it could be anything. It could be
yeah,
just a really mean boss.
yeah,
I think I think you need to know this. There are narcissists in the world who are very mean, right? Who say horrible things to
yeah,
you. And it's really a projection of their own insecurity, one.
good, true,
Two, I had this therapist once say, which was really cool that I talked to about what I was going through. They said, when you're dealing with sociopaths or narcissists, like to that extent, be the rock. Let it just roll over you. Like the water's going over you. Just be that rock. Don't respond. Like give no energy to that.
yeah,
And eventually they find somewhere else to to go.
yep.
And so I
They
think you
find,
can use that in an abusive relationship, or you can use that with an abusive boss or whatever.
yeah, yeah, they find the rock that is more malleable because that's what
Yeah,
they're
because
trying to
I
do.
became movable and I became loud and I was like a loud rock, but like I was like not moving from my position. And one thing you asked me earlier about how I got through this was, I, besides having a good support network that I developed over time,
Yeah,
I thought about people like Boudica, who was the Celtic warrior. I read a lot of history, so she was really in it. You know, she was really powerful. But like you get in touch with that spiritual nature, that kind of thing,
yeah,
and who you are deep down. And remember, what happens to you doesn't define you. It's just an event that happened. Like, for instance, what happened with Joe Biden was a moment in time many years ago, 2 decades ago, over 2 decades ago.
yeah,
But it's not me. It's just something that happened to me in that moment. And then how I deal with it now, how I present it to the world is my history. And I have a right to tell it and just stand in that truth. Like, and Julian Assange did it when he exposed government crimes.
yep.
And that's
That
all we can do.
that reminds me of someone asked me what advice I would give to the world. Like if you could give someone one piece of advice. I thought for a second and I said being a victim happens, but choosing whether to stay a victim is on you. Don't stay, never remain a victim. And that's what I'm just hearing. That's what I'm hearing from you. That's what I'm seeing from you. You
Powerful.
know, it happened, right? You were a victim of Joe Biden's, um, of Joe Biden, right? And you are not using it to woe is me. I, feel pity me for this. It's you're going, I want you to know about that man, all right? Because it happened to me. I don't know how many people it happened to. It wouldn't surprise me if he's still touchy and he's still. I mean, they keep him under, cloak, and he's behind closed doors for most of the time. I'm sure
He's
his
obviously lost a lot of filters, like
his
some old people
dude,
do.
I don't think he has any filter. I
I
think
mean, he's never really had many.
it,
He had more
good.
than, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think he just yeah, he's said a lot of things. I mean, in his first year of being in I think Congress, I don't remember exactly what position I think he just became a senator. And in an interview, they were doing like a townhouse kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And someone asked him, how do we deal with the corruption in government? It's a serious problem. A lot of people are worried about it. And his first response was, well, don't be so sure I'm not corrupt. And then he had that
He
like,
laughed.
he had that laugh, like that cheesy grin that he puts on. It's like, dude, you really think you're the coolest guy in the room.
He
And you
does.
you think you can get away with whatever. And I mean, I've never been in his presence, but I can imagine that that's how he is. And I'm imagining that's how he was around you, like, because that's what gave him the what he thought could, do what he does. And now we're seeing
Well,
him.
they've been very careful about crafting his folksy grandpa uncle
Yeah,
image for this campaign.
true.
When I knew him, he was at a point of power where he
Hmm.
was very, people were like intimidated by him. He was in his prime. He was about my age now.
Yeah,
He was the chairman of the judiciary, chairman of the foreign relations. He had a lot of clout. He had, aspirations to become president at that time, although he had already had a, falling. And in
tried.
fact, the words around the hill, once I got there and once I realized he wasn't who he was that he was a lightweight because he wasn't very intellectual. His staff would have to tell him how he was supposed to vote. He would vote with Strom Thurmond unless that was a joke among the legislative staff, unless they waved him down and got him not to. He was very shallow.
Yeah,
He liked immediate gratification. He wasn't like a heavy drinker in that kind of regard, but he liked women very much. And I think there were consensual women, right? There are people that found him attractive. He was
sure.
whatever. I just didn't. It just, I had a boyfriend at the time and I just didn't, he to me was in my mind, he was like in dad.
The dad
Yeah,
zone.
his age is my dad. So he was like over in dad mode,
Yeah.
like mentor mode. My
Did
boss.
you look? Did you look up to him at all? I mean, was he someone that?
I did. I really did. And in fact, I kept trying, like I did a lot of self-blame right at first because the first thing he said to me was, "Come on, man, I heard you liked me." The first thought that flooded me, and it flooded me almost like when you feel that feeling where like it goes through your bloodstream almost.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I was like a panic feeling. What did I do to bring this on? That was my
Right.
first. Yeah, and as I was experiencing this assault, and how do I get out of it? Like then there's like that, but also like what did I do? And I had thought of him as like going to be a mentor. I thought my future was set. I was so excited to work for him.
Yeah.
I didn't like what happened with Anita Hill, with the hearings. But I
Right.
wasn't quite where we are now because back then people thought differently about those sorts of things. We
Yeah, I
just
guess.
did. And I wasn't as enlightened as I am now about that and hadn't experienced it in the same way until after. But what I would say is that even when he was vice president, I was thinking, well, maybe what I experienced was a fluke and like he isn't like this.
No.
And then those other women came forward in 2019. I was like, oh my God, he's been doing this the whole time.
Yep. Not
He's
surprising.
been doing this the whole fucking time.
Well,
And yeah.
I don't want to dwell on that. Because
Yeah.
I want to hear more about you, and what you're doing
Okay.
outside of the political zone. Now, I want to talk I want you to tell me about this you mentioned it on Elijah's show. It was a foundation you're working with rescuing horses, wild horses. Is that you?
Well,
Is that
I don't work with them. I do raise up their profile because it doesn't get shared a lot, but it's
Oh,
Return to Freedom. I don't even know anyone in that organization
yeah, you mentioned that. That's
today.
it. Return
But
to
but
freedom.
I raise up there because they give a lot of ways people can help wild horses. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm very, one of the things that I got involved with when I worked for Panetta was I tried to get involved with stopping the slaughter of wild horses, which is still going on. I think there was in the last few years 26,000 horses slaughtered.
Wow.
Human consumption. It's so sad. And their
I'm
bloodlines.
sorry. Did you say for human consumption?
Yeah, in Canada and Europe, they still consume horses. Unfortunately, I think
Wow.
Japan as well. But they take them to Canada or Mexico slaughterhouses
Wow.
and transport them. And the
That's sad.
transport's brutal. They put them in these cattle trucks, and cattle trucks don't work for horses because their necks are so long and so they end up. I don't want to get graphic, but it's horrible. It's
Yeah,
horrific.
I can imagine.
And then they're slaughtered, and it's like horses are so like I don't know, they're such, I guess
They're
the term
beautiful.
is burden. We've used them so
What,
much
what
in
is
our,
what's the word you use? You choose?
but the term is beast of burden, but they've like horses have been, I mean, we've used them in war, we've used them in transportation, we use them for pleasure, and it just seems so disgusting. And I'm a vegetarian, so that,
Yeah,
I don't like killing animals. I just don't, they're sentient beings and I don't like it.
I agree.
That's my opinion.
Yeah,
So
I'm the same. I'm vegan actually, so I don't I don't consume animals either. It's if I were to though, I would want to take the animal's life myself because I don't want to do that. But if I would want to do it myself because I would want to know. And I feel like, hey, if you want to eat meat, go hunt
Mhm.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Know what you're doing, know what
Right.
the life you're taking, right? It's because you got to think
Well,
about that.
and so they have this thing called the SAFE Act they're trying to get through. I don't know, with all the other things happening in the world. I don't know if it's on anyone's radar, but the SAFE Act would end slaughter of horses. And I think that would be great. So that's my
Yeah, I
opinion.
I didn't even know what was going on. Horses, like I feel
I-
like yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
sad.
my mom rescued a horse. She's got a couple on her property, and
Oh,
they're
nice.
they're beautiful animals. Like they're really smart. They know me.
Mhm.
They can tell energy too. I feel like all animals can actually. It's they can sense energy. I actually felt like when I went vegan, I don't talk about my someone actually is like he actually told her he's vegan. I don't talk about it much. But we're talking about animals.
Yeah.
When I went vegan, after like a month, I felt animals acted differently around me, almost like they could tell that I didn't consume meat anymore, like they could smell it maybe on me. Uh,
Maybe. Yeah.
yeah, and it was like I was no longer a threat to them. And I was like, it really was different. Like animals in nature wouldn't scurry away as fast, or like cats would come up to me and be like, "Oh, you're cool." Like I don't even need to worry about you at all. When before it was like, all cats were. Did you ever notice that? I mean, you're vegetarian, so you have dairy
Yeah,
still,
I
right?
mean, I go back and forth between vegan. Where I fall off the wagon with veganism is that, like, where I live, there we have access to eggs. Like, there's chickens, so I get
Okay.
they're naturally laid and they're happy chickens. So I do eat eggs. I don't eat cheese anymore, so I guess I'm almost vegan because I don't eat any dairy.
Yeah, okay.
I drink like my coffee right now. I'm having a little bit of coffee today because I was tired.
What
But
kind of coffee what kind of coffee you got over there?
oh,
Hmm?
it's right. It's an Italian blend that I got, and I like to do the pour over. Some kind of, but anyway, I got almond milk in here instead of creamer. I
Like almond milk.
usually don't use butter. I use like that. There's a vegan butter that's non-dairy. And people say that they don't like the taste, but actually the things have gotten really developed. Like you can find really cool things at grocery outlet,
Oh,
even
yeah.
a really cheap grocery store. You can find a whole organic section.
Yeah.
Um,
I love those
I just
sections.
feel it's not it's I feel what I emotionally I feel better because my brother put it well because he's vegan. He said when you're eating meat from a factory farm, you're
Mhm.
eating fear, pain, and terror, anger.
100%. I
We like
agree.
ingesting that into your body.
Yep, it's true. I mean, there was that before I went vegan, there was always that like, don't let the goat see the blade. I don't even remember what that's from, but it's
Yeah,
because they get afraid.
right.
And then if you kill them without them seeing it, then because it taints the blood or something.
Yeah, but
You,
I know what it is. It courses through the nervous system. It affects the adrenaline.
mm.
Affects the meat.
Like
Yeah,
imagine how a cow feels that's sitting in
mhm,
line behind the one who's getting slaughtered, hearing the like the pain. I mean, because it's.
yeah.
I mean, I hear horror stories, and I've seen horror story. I mean, if you guys haven't seen what goes on in a slaughterhouse, maybe you
It's
should see it because you can get meat from better places that is more ethical. I mean, killing some would argue it's not ever ethical, but
yeah.
there's like snipers that take out cows so that it's like instantaneous. um I don't know. I don't really know much about it because I
Disgusting.
don't.
It's our American culture that we have right now, but we're
Yeah,
very detached from our food. Like we get it in this little pink thing, like a piece of meat is just this pink thing, not attached to anything, and nobody knows what it is, right?
yeah.
But if they
I
actually had to see the animal it came from and how the processing, I think a lot of people would be vegan. But
I
it's
think
so easy
it's
to be vegan now. You can go to Starbucks and you can order an impossible muffin with the impossible sausage in it, which is not
nice.
all plant based. It's so much cheaper now to get plant based meat.
True.
Like I make this taco thing where I do it's not even I don't even use real tortillas. I use they're like made from almonds.
Really.
And
Hmm.
and then we do like I do this vegan based meat crumbles, and
I
then
tried that.
cheese. It's
Yeah.
really good. An avocado, hot
Gotta love
sauce.
avocado. Throw avocado on everything.
Yeah, so I just think people like you can do it. It's so easy
True.
once you start.
I think it's a problem though. It's a bigger problem. Like the food culture in general. I mean, vegan or not, we are not in control of it anymore, right?
Mhm.
Uh, that's an issue unto itself because if the supply chains ended, right,
Yeah.
suddenly they were cut off, people would be screwed. People would have no idea what they're doing. I mean, vegan, non-vegan, anyone, it doesn't matter. Like we're s-
Well, and I
we're
mean, and that's when you have to learn how to garden, right? Let's get to and if you're not in a place where you garden, you can get indoor gardens now. You can get like
true.
your own thing. And
I
I
mean,
I just there's no
humans
excuse.
think
There's all
about it, like
yeah.
sorry, humans in for pretty much all of humanity has raised food,
Mhm.
stored it for the winter, and now we're no longer doing that, and we're basically losing all of those skills. So if it were to happen where suddenly the electricity went out and um, the trucks, gas stopped being brought so that all the truckers stopped bringing food to the stores, what would humanity do, right? I mean, that's it's a serious issue. I think about it a lot myself. I don't
Well,
know.
it's a valid one because the power grid could go out. I mean, another nation could take us out, could
True.
take our power grid, and then we're left with. So it is a good point. It's good to have dehydrate. If you don't know how to garden, you can't access that. Having
True.
not necessarily canned food, but dehydrated food works.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
just
have a
fresh water.
I have a old root cellar on my property that
Yeah.
I'm like I want to start, drying food and canning stuff and putting it on there. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. But you were asking about horses and healing and I did some equine therapy. Like I've done that with people that have PTSD and
Cool.
volunteered at a place that does that. And I really am drawn to that. So that's because a lot of times when there's human trafficking or sexual assault
Mhm.
or, really kind of physical violence like that, when you're healing, talk therapy doesn't work as well as like somatic, which is touch. So like massage or like different kinds of touch energy work or like there's all different kinds of methods.
Yeah.
But for me one of those message is hands-on, which is equine, and horses can hear. It's a few hundred feet away, but they can literally hear your heartbeat, and our system, our brain actually
Mhm.
links up with horses. We link
What?
up with energy. Yeah,
Really?
it's how like dogs are therapy dogs and things like that, and there's like this connection, and horses are the same way with humans
Huh.
because they are. Bear in mind, I don't know, but I can't really speak to dogs, but to horses, I know about this. They're prey animals, so they're very sensitive
Yeah.
to the emotions around them, and because they're alert, they have to be, and they think in a group rather than individually.
Hmm.
So, when people say, "Oh, that horse like big dog, it follows you around." No, it's not. It's joining up with you because it thinks you're part of its herd and it
Yeah.
it wants protection in numbers. And
Sma
so
Makes sense.
horses sense you. They sense your energy and they're
Hmm.
true. So if you come with fucked up energy, like if you're feeling angry but you're pretending to smile, horses see right through that.
Yeah. I believe it. I think that goes with pretty much every animal. Like I was talking earlier about how my interactions with them felt like it changed.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't the fact that I was eating meat or not. Maybe it was my realization of seeing animals differently, right? Because I had seen all these documentaries and
Mhm.
um, the slaughterhouses, and I just kind of like I don't know. I kind of had a new awareness to animals, whereas before I didn't think about it. I just went and bought my little pink package and, fried
Yeah.
my chicken breasts up, not thinking about it because it
Yeah.
was just food. Now I'm seeing it and going, that's actually meat from an animal that I didn't even kill myself, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from, some farm somewhere, but maybe that's what it's just the meat, the vision, the energy that I carried, there was a slight reverence for animals, uh, raised up after that.
When I was a little girl, we had a farm and my parents had beef cattle and they raised animals for meat. And So I saw early on like how it is, and I didn't like it early on. I didn't like it. Like I started kind of venturing into vegetarianism then. But what was interesting was at school they took us to the Oscar Mayer factory farm back then. It was so
Really?
traumatizing for those of us that went. Like there was a bunch of us that like didn't go to school the next day because we
How
were
old were
crying.
you?
Like they're like, here, let's take all the kids to Oscar Mayer, and they give you a hot dog. They took us into the part like you saw like what they're
Oh
gonna
my
do
goodness.
to the
Oh my,
pig area. And yeah, we were kids. We were like 8. It
oh
was
my goodness. They ate?
it was like they were doing it was educational. This is what you do, and like we all go home crying, and we're like,
I
it was
can't
Oscar
imagine
Mayer
being
tour
8
was
years
something I
old.
never forgot. Yeah,
Wow.
it stayed
That is
with me.
crazy.
The factory farm. That was That was brutal.
That's
Yeah,
craziness.
yeah. Like let's take the 8-year-olds and God.
All right. Well, we have a lot of super chats. I'm gonna start
Okay.
getting into them. Before we do, I just want to say thank you for joining me on my show. This has been a
Oh,
pleasure.
it's been really pleasure for me too.
Where
Thank
can people find your stuff? Where can people read your opinion pieces? I know RT has actually been.
Well, I was gonna say RT, but I don't know what's gonna happen with RT. I mean, I'm writing for RT, but like I don't. I think like just follow my Twitter and then follow me on Telegram. Follow RT on Telegram and then on Odyssey. Odyssey is this other platform.
Where are we gonna be able to read your poetry when it finally makes its way
It
back
was
to the
on
internet?
Substack, and I'll get brave again, and hopefully I won't get told that my prose is shit, and I'll get it back out there. But I have a
All right.
Substack, Tara Reade, so you can join the Substack. And if you want to pay me a coffee, that's nice and welcome because writers don't make much.
Okay. On that note, I need you to do me a favor. Okay.
Yes.
I need you to go to criglercoffee.com. All right. Pick out a blend and then you let me know what blend that is, and I'm gonna send you some coffee because
Oh, you're awesome.
now
Okay.
I have the freshest coffee that you can get on the internet.
Okay.
It's delicious coffee. I'm kind of a coffee guy. I don't know if you know this, but
Yeah,
you said
a
you're
little
drinking
bit.
coffee, and I'm like, ooh, drinking coffee. Yeah, all right. Well, coffee's delicious.
I love coffee.
I'm a big fan.
I love
Yeah,
coffee and tea. Okay, I'm checking it out.
yeah.
All right,
You let me
that's
know.
good. And so at Twitter at Reade Alexandra, Reade Alexandra. And I really would encourage you to support RT. Like whoever's out there listening, please support RT. We do not need more censorship. We don't. We need that voice. We need balance. And they are lovely people. And they're not just working in Moscow. I mean, they work all over the world, England and Scotland, different places. And these are writers that that you see in other places. So they're not like, there's no, they're really good people. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I see Russia state affiliated media, whatever, and it's like I don't get the same vibe when I see like Chinese state media, right? It's like it's almost like they're being told by the mainstream media here, in like the West, and I was to say here, but it's like pretty much anywhere in the West, they're saying, oh, that's the same. It's the same kind of disinformation, propaganda, BS that the Chinese state affiliated accounts give you versus the Russia, and it's like, I don't know. I've read some of the Chinese. I read those articles too, and I see what they're saying, and it's a lot of BS. And then I read RT, and I'm like, I don't see the propaganda, right? I've spent the past 2 years of my life discerning propaganda versus reality versus picking the bias and going, oh, this is where the bias lies, here's where the truth is, because I've read these 3 different articles and then this is the one that happens. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like one of the people I just had on my podcast, you can look at my podcast, which I have another episode coming out talking about the conflict with Natalie Baldwin. She's amazing. And it's Politics of Survival. So you can find that on any podcast platform. I don't know what's going to happen as far as the censorship. It looks like some of the high tech are getting involved with the government to deplatform people. And I just want to say to you, anyone who's listening about RT being censored and applauding that, they're going to come for you.
Right.
So don't think that you're going to somehow like, oh, well, I can still. It's going to get to the point where unless you're just right on message, you're out. You're not going to be having a platform.
Free speech is the only way.
Free speech. It is. I mean, we need it. I mean, like even my loathsome trolls have a right to not
Yep.
believe me if they're like not being paid. They have a right to say what they want to say as long as it's not threatening my life, which I don't
Yep.
appreciate. But like that's what we want. We don't want to suppress people. We don't want to like make people robots
Yep.
and
Exactly.
all have groupthink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that utopia world where everyone thinks the same, wears the same
Yeah.
clothing, and
A
acts the same.
utopia.
That's what their minds are at, where they
Mhm.
think. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is what it is, right? So,
Yes. So
all
group
right.
chat. So that, I mean the super chat. Okay.
All right, super chats. I got a lot. I'm sure there's some questions for you, and I
Okay.
think a lot of people might have chimed in as we were having different conversations about a couple different things. So
Okay. So we
uh,
can go back. That's cool.
we might have already answered them, is what I'm trying to say. Uh,
Okay.
but let's get into it. Thanks everyone for hanging out and enjoying. Well, lots of super chats today, and let's see here. We got Lady Freddie with a little for $10. Thank you. Says just number one fan. All right, well, thank you. Uh,
Aw.
St. Miles says, good job. Well, thank you very much, St. Miles. Georgie for 10 says, hey, man, Slava Ukraini. I don't know what that is, but how are you, man? Greetings from the Balkans. Here we are all sending weapons to Ukraine. St. Javelin may protect them. Biden messed this up, in my honest opinion. Um,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I don't know much about what's going on over there. That's why I'm trying to find out more about it. But
Well, read Aaron Mate, read Glenn Greenwald, read some alternative, besides the mainstream news,
yeah,
read some of the scholars involved. I had Brian McDonald, who's a journalist from Ireland who lives in Moscow, who was on my podcast. Listen to that podcast.
okay.
Igor Lopotnik directed and Oliver Stone produced Ukraine on Fire. Ukraine Rising. Watch those documentaries if you don't feel like reading an article. Those documentaries will help you get the historical perspective.
Yeah, I wanna know more. Darth Vader for celebrating 4 months as a member. Thank you, Darth Vader. Says, "Hey y'all, surgery went well. Awesome. Home and on the mend. Thank you all for your prayers. My back is still a bit sore from having giant needles jabbed into it. Otherwise, doing good." Darth Vader, great to know that you're doing better. And thanks for tuning in while you're on the mend. That's great. Mr. Squiggle says, nonsense, Adam. You know a lot of Russians. According to MSN and the left, we're all Russians.
Yours.
All right. Yeah, that's funny.
Mhm.
Benjamin Jansen celebrating 11 months as a member. Thank you so much, Benjamin. Says, hey, great guest. Also, welcome back, Adam. We all missed you. I bet you are happy to be back at your house. Looking to get my own soon. Yes, I am very happy to be back. This is my home studio. I've been gone for quite a while on some travels. It is good to be home. Nothing beats being home, especially with family. JK Win says, first day I got to catch your live show in months. YouTube, wait, why for being open-minded? I don't know what why means. Why means, but
Mhm.
for being open-minded, can barely watch YouTube because most got played. Tara, much love for standing by your principles. Indeed. You could have scurried away and hid like they wanted you to, and you
Oh
didn't.
yeah.
So props to you for that. I agree.
Yeah.
Vash for 10 says nukes are not a first strike weapon. They are to keep the other guy from nuking you first. It's absolutely insane that someone actually suggested that.
I know.
Just nuke him. Like,
Preemptive.
what?
Yeah.
It's like you realize if you send a nuke, they're going to send a nuke, and then suddenly the world is gone, right? I mean, obviously that's the worst case scenario, but
I know. Yeah.
jeez, people are they don't think. Thankfully they're not in charge.
Yeah.
Brewmaster Monk says the war is about filling end times / third temple prophecy. The evangelicals are not being quiet about it. Talk to Adam Green of Knows More News. Interesting. I never even thought about like a religious connotation to what's going on
Yeah.
right now.
Neither. Yeah. But yeah.
But I'm sure they're all saying the same thing. Georgie says Saint Javelin is protecting Ukraine. The whole of UA is being helped by EU like never before, and now again, US decides to play political sides. I just think there's a lot that they're not telling us. Oh wow, you have a lot of super chats, George. Georgie again says those guys are called Azov, like I said. Oh, the Nazis in
Even the
Ukraine.
neo-Nazis, the Azov Battalion.
Right,
There's
right.
like 3 different groups, but yeah.
Yeah, they are fanatical nationalists slash patriots, like you guys say in the US, like rednecks. Okay, well, you're
No, they wear Nazi insignia.
oh,
They're yeah.
are you suggesting, Georgie, that rednecks are
Yeah.
like Nazis? Like, dude, you're
Well, I
clearly
mean, okay, like
wrong.
let's deep dive into what he's saying though. He's right in that there's an assumption that anyone who's like far right in the United States is a Nazi,
Okay,
neo-Nazi.
good point. Good point.
True.
That's true.
And so what he's trying to
If
say
he's
is that they're
being
being yeah.
yeah, if that's what he's trying to say, or is he calling them like you guys say in the US like rednecks? Okay, maybe
But no,
because
but these are actually white nationalists with very extremist views with Nazi symbols. So
right.
yeah, they're not neo-Nazis. Yeah, and they're proud of who they are. So
Yeah. He
yeah.
continues says they do have bad people. True. So what? Yeah, exactly. There's racists ever. No, Georgie, he said it in chat. He said they got me so wrong. All right, so I think that Tara, you are actually more on the money with what he was trying to say. Because the way
Mhm.
I took it, I was like, "Are you serious? Like, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?" But okay, because he's in chat right now, going, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa."
No, yeah,
Um,
yeah. He's talking about like how like Donald Trump supporters are called neo-Nazis and there's
oh yeah,
this because they're redneck, they're just white
I
supremacists. That's not
I
true.
was I was called that by
Yeah.
people that have known me for 20 years because
I
I voted
think
for
it's
him.
kind of like being called like I'm a Russian agent. It's just like it's just or grifter. That's another word people use. It's just a word they throw around. But
Hmm.
there are actual people who are into that, but we're not in that realm, like
Yeah, yeah.
of any of those philosophies. So
Yeah. Georgie, I didn't mean to mess up your
we
super
got your
chat.
back, Georgie. We understand.
Again, Georgie says, but I can send you legit photos of hanged and burned bodies of Ukrainian troops from the war in 2014 to 2016. For once, I am happy if U.S. financed dome crazy guys to counter the other crazies.
Well, and we can also there's 14,000 Russian nationals and children and mothers that are dead, and there's mass graves, and that was proven. So anyway,
More things that they don't want us to know, right? So like we don't
Mhm.
that's I have a hard time even commenting on this whole thing, right? I just ask what is going on because
Yeah.
the more I get from different sides, the more the story is filled out in my head. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep asking
Yeah,
questions.
watch Ukraine on Fire, watch Ukraine Rising, and that gives like a very neutral kind of just like and but it also exposes what the West did, which is you need to know that our part in it.
Wolf 7 Music for 20 says, I don't care what the source or information is. I want it on the table for me to examine and formulate my own ideas and opinions. Censorship is never justified. The inaccurate and harmful ideas will be challenged and defeated. Yes.
Good. Yeah. Well,
Excellent. Exactly. That is exactly how it's supposed to be. I want to see it all. I want to make the ideas for myself and, you know, let me decide. Let me cross compare and examine and know what's going on. Um, I think that's what people. It's like they're saying, "Oh, you're too dumb to disseminate the information yourself. We're gonna tell you what it really is." It's like,
yeah.
no,
Like
no,
processed food. We're gonna make that for you, and then you just eat. You consume what we give you. Yeah.
right? It's disgusting, terrible. Mods, I just a quick message to mods. Thank you for all your work. And if you feel the need to get rid of people in my chat, um, I'm glad you're letting them speak. Clearly,
It's
some
good.
people.
It's good. Like, and there, if someone has a question or if they don't like what I'm saying, it's okay. I can take it. It's fine.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have an incredible chat, and my chat is absolutely amazing.
Good.
So I just wanted to give a quick thanks to the mods because they weren't. You're attacking my mods, bro. And you now got my attention, and I don't mind getting rid of you from my chat it's not cancel culture. I'm just cutting you from being able to speak in my chat. I'm okay with that, because you're starting to cross the line, and it's annoying. And mods, if you guys got to do what you got to do, I'm okay with it. Mavis for 20 says, my husband just showed me a video clip someone sent him. It was a news anchor talking about an old man accused of inappropriately touching a young girl. The graphic while she was talking was of Biden because of tonight's speech. Biden is he's a disgusting man, and I cannot believe that man is president.
I know.
And
taking us to World War III. Yeah.
He's the worst president in my lifetime, arguably of the entire history of America.
Absolutely.
Joseph says, I was right about Ukraine. Ukraine, thank you for vindication. All of it. The Nazis attacking the Jews, Malaysian Flight 117, the corruption. Thank you. I don't know anything about the Malaysian flight. Is that the flight that disappeared or something? Like suddenly?
Yeah. Well, no, those are two different ones, but there's one that they're referring to that was shot down. Yeah. So they're talking about.
Oh, it was one that was shot down. Oh, okay. I don't know about that one.
And then there was another. The Malaysia is different thing.
Chef de jour for 10 says, hey Adam, my beloved mother passed away a week ago. Oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's a shame. This has been the worst week of my life. She survived polio as a child, spent time in an iron lung. She was a survivor and my inspiration. Chef de jour, I am very sorry to hear that. Very sorry for your loss. Yeah. That is terrible. I love my mother so much. I can't even think about losing her. She's in chat right now. Mom, I love you. Let's
hi Mom.
Oh. She's my biggest fan.
That's nice. Yeah, my parents are dead, so I miss them too. So I understand. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to move on from your mother's death. It took me a long time. I still like when they were playing that Larry King call of my mom calling in, about Biden and stuff.
Right.
I could barely get through interviews, because she died of a rare form of throat cancer. So for the last year of her life, I didn't really get to hear her voice. And so when they played it, it was just like, whoa, I didn't expect it. It was like, that was my mom's voice. And it was just, I would burst into tears like every interview almost. And it was really hard to hold it together. But yeah, I had a very close relationship with my mom too. So I understand. It's just, now I feel her with me. She was an artist and I feel her with me sometimes, but yeah. Good. And when that happened, actually, it felt like it's almost like she reached out from the grave and was like, I'm here.
I'm protecting you still. I got your back still. That's cool.
Yeah.
Chef de jour, though, my thoughts go out to you. I hope that I know it's definitely going to be rough losing a loved one, especially someone so close.
Especially right now. Yeah. Take care.
So I'm sorry to hear. Fantastic Mr. Knox says, good to see you're back streaming again after being yeeted by YouTube. Also, what a wonderful guest, too. I don't trust either side anymore, and mainstream media as well as socials aren't doing anyone any favors. Thank you. And absolutely. I agree 100%. So, Christian for what is this? 219 NOK. What is knock? I don't know what kind of currency that is, but thank you. Said I just want to give some support here from Norway. Oh, it's Norwegian. Cool.
Oh, Norway. That's
from
so
Norway.
Cool.
That's cool. We got someone watching us from Norway. That's cool. I can't always watch or give this support, but your kind of voice is really important. So when I can, I will do what I can. Keep up the great fight. Thank you for your voice. Well, I'm assuming you're talking about Tara right now because she's absolutely fighting for survivors. I know Eliza is one of my favorites. She's incredible, and you did a great job over on her show. And it seems I didn't actually know how long that you actually have been fighting for survivors and stuff. Like you said, you got into it, and you were teaching others people to recognize it, and that's great. I'm glad that you two connected as well.
Yeah, for like 20 years. Yeah.
Amazing. So thank you for that work.
Thank you.
Aaron Beringer says you need to take a close look at SAFE Act. Cassandra McDonald, I know Cassandra McDonald. She's great. Has been pointing out serious problems. I'll check it out. Yeah, she's
Okay, I will.
she's good. I'll look into it. I'll go peruse her Twitter feed.
Yeah. See what's going on with that, because they're right. Sometimes those they have this one intention with the legislation, and then they kind of gut it or change it. So thanks for the heads up. We'll look into it.
Any act that says something like the Patriot Act, National Defense Authorization Act, For the People Act, the SAFE Act. Yeah, I don't believe it. It's always
Okay.
there's
Might
always
not be
something on like
Yeah.
page 1380 that like that one line. It's like, and by the way, we can just go and arrest you if you don't do what we say. It's like, whoa, what? Whoa. Yikes.
It's like how they expanded the Espionage Act, right? Yeah.
Metastep says, I sent you an 11-month anniversary chat yesterday. Did I miss it, Meta? Did I miss it? Dude, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I can't believe I missed that. I don't know if I can even check anywhere. Oh wait, maybe I can. I just checked to see if I could find. No, this
Can
is
you check archived? Does it have it archived?
Yeah, I have like in the YouTube studio, I'm able to see like member activity.
Oh, cool.
But it doesn't show me messages, and they don't show up in the super chats because they're like a separate thing. So
Okay.
Metastep, let me just say directly to you, thank you for the 11 months. Okay, I really do appreciate it. You're always here. You're always hanging out. Thank you, Meta. I really do appreciate you.
Thank you, Meta.
Georgie again for 10 says, problem is I am too close to all of this. I expect friends of mine to die in Ukraine in the next days. I am just venting. If Azov even slows down, this a bit, so be it. I hope you get me. Yeah, you're worried for your friends. I'm
so sorry. It's so much pain. War is just pain. And Lex Friedman put out a tweet, and he just said war is pain and death. I mean, that's all it is. It's just awful. So our heart goes out to you and your friends, really. And I hope you're safe.
I agree. Yeah, I don't want anyone to get hurt. And it sucks. Fantastic Mr. Knox says, current hard to eat anything good since I got a wisdom and decayed molar pulled out, but that pain after isn't as bad as the pain I had. I actually understand that pain. Mr. Knox, I had all 4 of my wisdom teeth were impacted. I had to get them taken out, and just tooth pain is one of the worst pains. That's horrible. Yeah. Christian again says from Norway says, okay, from now on, I will not miss any Crigler shows. This is just too good. The truth mentality is what we need, even though it's 2 a.m. here right now. Well, thank you for sticking it through, Christian. I appreciate it.
Tell them to follow me at Reade Alexandra. I want a good Norwegian on my side.
Down in the description below is her Twitter feed. You can go find her there. And I'm pretty sure you have a link in your
and to the Norwegian friends, Skål.
Actually, I don't. That's Swedish, isn't it? Skål. I don't know if.
Sorry.
In Norway, it might be. I don't know.
It just means cheers, but you're right. Like, and it even kind of sounds like that in Celtic. Like,
Skål.
Zanzibar is
Zanzibar.
Yeah.
Skål. But that is a show, everyone.
We're gonna do it in multi-languages. Now your super chat's gonna fill with people like saying cheers in different languages.
No, that was it. That was the super chats. Thank you so much for joining me. What a pleasure.
Yeah, this was fun. I'm gonna look up your coffee. So
yes, and just send me a message on Twitter, and let me know, and we'll send you off whichever one you choose.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who watched and listened. You were wonderful. And we'll see you again. And let's hope for peace. And let's hope that, like that Twitter person, Pam, let's hope she doesn't have the codes.
Right. Christian, we have an update from Christian. Says Skål is Norwegian also. So.
Yay. Okay. I thought it was. Right. Okay. Well, I'll see him hopefully on Twitter. Sorry. You all take care. And again, thank you. It was such an honor being on your live feed and everything like that. So it's really fun to do it live. I usually do pre-recorded, so it's kind of, it was cool.
Yep. Yeah, we gotta, we just kind of, and I don't really prepared too much. Obviously, I know some of the history of your.
Mhm.
Had some things I wanted to ask you, but
Mhm.
I kind of just, I wanted to feel like we're just kind of chatting and hanging
Hanging
out.
out.
Yeah, it's
And you
good.
know what? It felt so good to not have to deal or even look at what's going on with the State of the Union address. So thank you for, you're kind of like the safe haven I was able to come
Oh,
to not, yeah, because now
yeah.
I'm going to go see my horse and I'm not going to even know what was said and all
Well, I'll
his
do it.
murder about saving the soul of the nation, how we need to have a war. So I
God.
don't have to
Well,
listen to it.
I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna go.
You go
I
do
have
that
to. I
and
have to
filter
do
it
it.
for me.
Yeah, yeah.
All
We got
right.
one more.
Thank
Georgie
you.
says, "Are you guys still here?" Tim said that the president of Ukraine is a commie because he made a fist to the EU. Sometimes Tim could be a something. No comment on that. But
No,
anyway, guys,
all
that's
right.
my show. I will see y'all next time. Thanks
Take
for
care.
joining in. Bye.
All right.
One sec. Oh, okay. Bye, everybody.